So picture this. I'm standing on my own front porch, coffee mug still warm in my hand, watching a guy from our homeowners association pull out a taser and actually fire it at my wife. My actual wife, Ava. Now, here's the kicker they didn't know. Ava's former special ops. And her old crew? Yeah, they were already watching, little red laser dots painting a nice target right on the idiot's chest, before you jump in asking, hold on, how is that even legal? And how did Ava not see that coming? Let me break it down. Around here, in Willow Creek Meadows, legal is sometimes treated more like a gentle suggestion. And Ava noticing? Oh, trust me, she noticed. She just let it happen. Why? Because Ava doesn't get rattled by power-tripping HOA wannabes playing dress-up. Me? I definitely got rattled. I was still in my slippers, mind you. One second, we're debating if we have enough propane for the Memorial Day grill-out. The next, she hits the driveway like a sack of potatoes, and some dude in a cheap security vest is barking into a walkie-talkie like he just captured a high-value target. My brain pretty much blue-screened. Let's back up a bit. We moved into Willow Creek Meadows about 8 months ago. The brochure promised serene, secure, family-friendly, which I've learned is code for ruled by an HOA with an iron fist and delusions of grandeur. Every house looks the same. The lawn height is enforced more strictly than traffic laws. And heaven help you if your recycling bin is out before 6:59 a.m. On pickup day, Ava found the whole setup amusing from the start. She joked that the HOA rulebook was thicker than her old field manuals, but she played along. We wanted peace, quiet, good schools nearby, and no neighbors blasting techno at 3 a.m. The first sign of trouble was the off-roader, her awesome dark gray, heavily modified machine. She parked it maybe 3 inches onto the grass, barely touching it. The very next morning, there was a violation notice stuck to our door, written with the urgency of a national emergency alert. I chuckled. Ava didn't. She just scanned it and filed it away in a binder she labeled Willow Creek Chronicles. I should have realized then she was already strategizing. The HOA president, a woman named Eleanor Vance, yes, really, ran the neighborhood like her personal fiefdom. Her weapon of choice was a laminated clipboard. She favored beige pantsuits like they were tactical gear, and she took an instant dislike to Ava, said Ava had disruptive energy and projected unnecessary intensity. Honestly, I think Eleanor was just annoyed that Ava didn't tremble when she marched over uninvited to lecture us about how aesthetic harmony fosters community spirit. Ava just blinked, said, "Right?" and went back to adjusting something on the off-roader. That little exchange apparently earned us weekly compliance checks and multiple citations about vehicles displaying non-conformist modifications. But things really ramped up when the HOA created what they called the Willow Creek Community Watch. Sounds harmless, right? Wrong. It was basically 5 guys who looked like they'd failed the entry exam for mall security. They wore black polos, cargo pants, and knockoff badges saying things like community standards and resident patrol. They carried huge mag lights, clipboards, and, I kid you not, pepper spray. I once saw one of them practicing baton twirls in the cul-de-sac, like he was trying out for a low-budget action movie. Ava observed them with the detached calm of someone who once successfully negotiated a hostage situation, using only a broken watch and hand signals. She didn't say much, but her morning jogs got longer. She started having quiet chats with neighbors, and I noticed some new cables running through the attic crawlspace. I asked her once if she was up to something. She just smiled that cryptic smile of hers and said, "Just observing. They're making it easy." I knew better than to push. When Ava says she's observing, you just let her observe. Meanwhile, the HOA's little patrol got bolder. They installed cameras pointing down public sidewalks. They threatened to fine kids for drawing with sidewalk chalk. They actually fined someone's grandmother because her garden gnomes were deemed subversively expressive. Seriously, one gnome might have been making a rude gesture. They treated it like an act of rebellion. Then, one afternoon, I caught one of the watch guys peering into our living room window, pretending to read a utility meter nearby. Ava didn't lose her cool. She just stepped outside and calmly asked him if he'd like a demonstration of how ineffective his pepper spray was against someone who'd been exposed to military-grade irritants more times than she could count. He practically tripped over his own feet getting away. That brings us to the Memorial Day cookout. Our attempt at a casual backyard gathering, which was really more like a neighborhood venting session disguised with burgers and lawn chairs. People were simmering. HOA meetings had become pure theater. Eleanor Vance would bang her gavel and declare, "This is a community of order," while someone in the back would inevitably mutter, "Then stop acting like petty tyrants." We hosted the cookout. Ava deliberately parked her off-roader right on the street, directly opposite the HOA sign about maintaining neighborhood aesthetics. Like clockwork, the community watch showed up. This time, they had matching vests and pre-printed citation pads. I was at the grill when I saw them approach, forming up like they were about to raid a compound. 5 guys, tactical adjacent gear, clipboards ready, and one filming with his phone, narrating, approaching the non-compliant vehicle. Ava just stood near the front bumper, arms crossed, completely silent. They issued a warning. She shrugged and said, "Feel free." Apparently, that was all the encouragement they needed. And that's how we ended up back at the taser moment. Ava went down. I froze. And then, like fireflies appearing at dusk, little red laser dots started winking into existence, landing squarely on the vests, arms, and chests of the HOA crew. That's when the taser-wielding guy's smug look vanished. He blinked, confused. From the shadows of the hedges, the alleyway next door, even the roof of our garage, Ava's former teammates stepped silently into view. I hadn't heard a thing, but suddenly, they were just there. Calm, professional, equipped. And Ava? She cracked open one eye, gave a tiny smirk, and murmured, "Always wondered what getting zapped by a rookie felt like." What none of us knew then was the sheer volume of evidence she'd been compiling for months. The real fireworks? They were just about to start. The thing about these little neighborhood power trips is that the people running them genuinely think they're the heroes. They believe they're defending civilization against the chaos of slightly overgrown lawns or improperly parked cars. After the taser incident, which, remember, ended with Ava basically shrugging it off like a mosquito bite, you'd expect the HOA to maybe, just maybe, reconsider their life choices, especially after realizing they'd just assaulted a highly trained former operative in front of half the neighborhood. But nope, that would require self-awareness, something Eleanor Vance and her crew seemed allergic to. They doubled down. Eleanor, yes, still her name, still rocking the beige power suits, decided Ava was the real problem. Not the unauthorized use of a weapon, not the creepy late-night inspections caught on doorbell cameras all over Willow Creek. No, it was Ava. Ava was antagonistic. Ava was a threat to neighborhood harmony. Ava, she actually claimed in an email, was generating negative community resonance. I swear, she talked like she'd weaponized a corporate wellness retreat. So what did Eleanor do? She called an emergency HOA board meeting. Not to apologize, not to investigate her own goons, but to ram through a new rule. A ban on vehicles with aggressive or militaristic aesthetics, and any displays suggesting conflict on residential property. It was aimed squarely at Ava and her off-roader, the same one that had been sitting peacefully in our driveway for months. The wording was just vague enough to sound official but clearly targeted Ava. And to add insult to injury, she rebranded her little squad. The Willow Creek Community Watch was now the Resident Safety Committee. Fancy, right? Ava actually laughed, a short, sharp bark of amusement, when she found the notice taped to our door. Then she folded it precisely and added it to her ever-thickening binder. It had tabs now: violations log, false citations, privacy breaches, and my personal favorite, HOA overreach lexicon. That section included gems like unauthorized garden gnome expression and non-compliant wind chime decibel levels. But again, Ava didn't yell. She didn't storm the next board meeting. Instead, her morning jog the next day took a slightly different route. That's when I realized she wasn't just jogging, she was doing reconnaissance. What nobody knew was that Ava had converted the small closet under our stairs into a mini command center. No weapons, nothing dramatic, just pure information. Stacks of folders, printed emails, USB drives, time-stamped photos, and video clips from doorbell cameras all over Willow Creek. Half of them weren't even ours. Turns out, frustrated neighbors had been quietly funneling information to her for weeks. Ava had accidentally become the neighborhood's unofficial ombudsman. One neighbor across the street, Mr. Henderson, quiet retiree, loved his classic cars, had been fined for unsecured patio furniture during a windy day. Another woman, a single mom juggling 2 jobs, got cited because her dog's reflective collar was deemed excessively bright under the new LED streetlights. Everyone had a story. Everyone felt targeted. They just hadn't known how to fight back until Ava started methodically compiling their grievances into something concrete. And her old team? They were definitely still in the loop. Nothing overt, nothing aggressive, just providing situational awareness, as Ava called it. One of them, Marcus, who lived a few blocks over, suddenly developed a routine of walking his dog past our house multiple times a day. Another, Ben, who worked for a downtown security company, just happened to install a few upgraded security cameras for a client concerned about package theft nearby. Cameras that happened to have excellent views of the public street and sidewalk. It wasn't spying. It was security layering, all perfectly legal and placed with homeowners' permission. Meanwhile, the Resident Safety Committee kept pushing. They started doing random compliance checks without notice. They carried their citation pads like badges of honor. They took photos of trash cans, measured grass height with actual tape measures, and left passive-aggressive notes like, concern, porch light potentially exceeds approved lumen output. At one point, I'm pretty sure they used a drone to hover over someone's backyard for property boundary verification. Ava got footage of that too and filed it under aerial harassment. She was building a case, brick by painstaking brick. I didn't know the endgame, but I could feel the pressure building. Eleanor Vance, naturally, acted like she was winning. She'd patrol the neighborhood with her chin held high, nodding curtly at residents as if expecting gratitude for her vigilance. But behind the polite smiles and perfectly trimmed hedges, resentment was boiling over. Every street had its own collection of simmering anger, and Ava was just standing back, holding a match, waiting patiently for the right moment. Then came the sidewalk chalk incident. A group of young kids, maybe 5 or 6 years old, had decorated the sidewalk near the community park with drawings, flowers, dinosaurs, a slightly lopsided stick figure family. The kind of innocent stuff that makes you smile. Eleanor didn't smile. She declared it an unapproved public art display and slapped each kid's household with a $150 fine. She even sent the committee out to photograph the vandalism before the sprinklers washed it away. That was the breaking point for several parents. They showed up en masse at the next HOA meeting, usually a ghost town, packing the small community room. Ava was there too, sitting quietly in the back, her binder on her lap. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The parents did the talking, shouting questions, demanding accountability. And for the first time, they didn't quiet down when Eleanor banged her gavel like a frustrated judge. After the meeting, Eleanor stormed out, furious. The next morning, a new notice appeared on our door. Final warning: vehicle in violation of bylaw section 12, subsection C. Vehicle appearance nonconformity. Ava just smiled, a tight, controlled curve of her lips. She didn't even look up from the spreadsheet on her laptop. I asked what she was doing. Just finalizing a report, she said casually, tying up some loose ends. Then she met my eyes. I think it's about time. That evening, as the sun cast long shadows across the compliant lawns and the sprinkler systems hissed their nightly rhythm, two things happened almost simultaneously. First, Ava's old team's secure chat group pinged silently on her phone. Second, a plain white envelope was slipped under our front door. No name, no address, just 3 words printed in stark block letters. We're watching her. I picked it up, feeling a chill despite the warm evening. I looked at Ava, raising an eyebrow. She didn't look worried. If anything, she looked intrigued. Then she said something that stuck with me. They think they're warning us. They have no idea I'm not the one who should be scared right now. It started like any other Memorial Day weekend gathering. Burgers sizzling, music playing, at a reasonable volume mostly, neighbors chatting and trying to forget the low-level anxiety the HOA had inflicted on everyone. We'd invited a good chunk of the block, Mr. Henderson, the single mom with the bright-collared dog, a few other families who'd shared their HOA horror stories with Ava. Ava herself seemed relaxed, but there was a focused energy about her, like a chess master watching the final pieces move into place. I just kept the drinks cold and tried not to look nervous. By mid-afternoon, our backyard was buzzing. Kids were running through the sprinkler, adults were clustered around the grill. It almost felt normal. You'd never guess Ava had received that anonymous "we're watching her" note just the night before. She'd simply added it to the intimidation tactics section of her binder. Around 3:30 p.m., I spotted them. 3 members of the esteemed Resident Safety Committee, marching down the sidewalk with purpose. Same black polos, same cargo pants, same air of self-importance. One clutched a radio, another had his phone out, already recording. They paused at the end of our driveway, conferred briefly, and then started walking towards the house. This wasn't just a patrol, this was an intervention. Ava saw them coming, of course. She was handing out slices of watermelon, completely unfazed. She didn't even glance towards her off-roader, parked defiantly on the street right under the aesthetic compliance zone sign. It sat there, dark gray and unapologetic, practically daring them. She'd even tucked a small American flag behind the windshield wiper earlier. The three committee members approached like they were executing a high-stakes warrant. The recorder kept filming. Another guy flipped open his citation book. The leader, a short, barrel-chested man with mirrored sunglasses hiding his eyes, stepped forward and cleared his throat loudly. "This vehicle," he announced, projecting his voice, "is in violation of Willow Creek Meadows bylaw, Section 12, subsection C." Ava, mid-watermelon slice handover, turned slowly. She looked from the off-roader to him, then back again, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Which part are you citing?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. "The tires or the attitude?" He bristled. His two buddies stepped closer, trying to look intimidating. I saw Mr. Henderson pause by the cooler, whispering to me, "Are they seriously doing this now? During a party?" "Yes, Mr. Henderson, they absolutely were." Sunglasses guy pulled a laminated card from his vest pocket, holding it up like it was scripture. "This constitutes your final warning. Failure to immediately relocate this non-conforming vehicle will result in its removal by tow, authorized by the Willow Creek HOA Board and the Resident Safety Committee." Someone near the back snorted loudly and muttered, "Authorized by who? The neighborhood fashion police?" Ava just smiled. That small, infuriating smile that screamed, "I've dealt with people far scarier than you before breakfast." She took a step forward, positioning herself between them and the off-roader, arms crossed loosely. "You want to move it?" she said softly. "You'll have to go through me." Silence. Thick, awkward silence. The guy with the citation book shifted his weight, looking distinctly uncomfortable. The one filming hesitated, his phone dipping slightly. But Sunglasses, he wasn't backing down. His hand drifted towards his belt, hovering over the taser holstered there. "You are obstructing official HOA business," he declared, taking another step closer. "Move aside, or we will be forced to use non-lethal measures to ensure compliance and restore community order." The air crackled. Everyone froze. I felt my own muscles tense, ready to jump in, even though I knew Ava didn't need my help. Was this clown really going to tase her again? Right here, right now? Ava didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice, just held his gaze, looking at him like he was a particularly dense toddler throwing a tantrum. Then, a garbled voice squawked from the radio on the other guy's belt. I couldn't make out the words, but it made the radio guy frown and take half a step back. Sunglasses didn't care. With a sharp, jerky movement, he unholstered the taser, aimed it straight at my wife, and fired. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Someone screamed. I felt my stomach drop. Ava collapsed. But this time, the script flipped instantly. As Sunglasses stood there, looking momentarily stunned by his own action, red dots bloomed across his chest and arms. Then more appeared on his buddies. Sharp, steady, professional laser sights, appearing from nowhere and everywhere. The neighbor's upstairs window, the dense hedge across the street, the roofline 2 doors down. One by one, silent figures emerged from the shadows. Ava's old team, Marcus, Ben, and 2 others I didn't recognize. Not rushing, not shouting, just appearing. Calm, equipped, radiating competence. They moved into flanking positions, effectively pinning the 3 HOA guys without saying a word. Sunglasses froze solid. His 2 partners looked like they wanted to evaporate. Even the kids nearby went silent, wide-eyed, sensing the sudden shift in power. And then Ava rolled onto her side. No groaning, no confusion, just a smooth roll, pushing herself up onto one elbow. She looked directly at Sunglasses and said, clear as a bell, "You need to work on your aim." That shot was a bit high and wide. The sound of about 20 jaws hitting the pavement simultaneously was almost deafening. She stood up, brushed imaginary dust off her pants, and looked down at the taser wires still attached to her shirt. She pulled them out with a sharp tug, like plucking annoying threads. I watched Sunglasses' hand go slack, the taser dropping from his nerveless fingers onto the grass. His knees buckled slightly, his body betraying his bravado. Ava walked towards him, slow, deliberate steps. "You just assaulted someone," she said, her voice low but carrying. "Again, on camera, with multiple witnesses. Do you have any idea how many laws you just broke? Do you even understand the difference between an HOA bylaw and actual criminal statutes?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Just then, Ben stepped forward, handed Ava a thick manila folder and said quietly, "All systems green. Everything's logged." Ava nodded, flipped open the folder, and that infuriatingly calm smile returned. That's when it hit me. The cookout wasn't just a neighborhood gathering. It was bait. And the trap had just sprung. For a beat, the world seemed to hold its breath. The HOA guy who'd dropped the taser stood frozen, hands slightly raised, sweat beading on his upper lip. His eyes darted between Ava, now calmly flipping through pages in the folder, and the unwavering red dots painting his chest. Eleanor Vance was conspicuously absent. Maybe she'd sensed the tide turning, or maybe she just preferred letting her minions take the heat. Either way, the power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. You could practically taste the change in the air. Something had just shattered, and it wasn't Ava. Ava stood at the epicenter, radiating calm control. No shouting, no threats, just quiet confidence. She glanced through the folder her teammate Ben had handed her, then addressed the crowd, which had swelled to include most of the immediate neighbors drawn by the commotion. "For anyone wondering," she said, her voice clear and steady, "everything that just happened, and everything leading up to it, has been meticulously documented. Body cams, neighbor security footage, sworn statements, drone recordings. It's all in here." She tapped the folder, and copies have already been delivered. The taser guy finally found his voice, though it was rough. "Delivered? To who?" Ava looked at him, then gestured slightly with her head towards a man who had just stepped onto the sidewalk behind her team. He was tall, wearing a crisp suit, and held an open ID badge wallet. "To him," Ava said simply, "and his colleagues." The man stepped forward, his voice carrying easily. "Agent Davies," he announced, U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. "We initiated an investigation into the Willow Creek Meadows HOA several months ago based on numerous complaints. Today's events provide sufficient grounds to proceed." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. People exchanged wide-eyed looks. Some gasped. It was like watching a hidden camera expose unfold live on their street corner. Ava's team subtly shifted, creating space, ensuring the scene remained calm. They gently guided onlookers back, spoke reassuringly to the shaken neighbors, and kept a watchful eye on the remaining 2 HOA committee members who now looked utterly defeated. It was clear to everyone that Ava hadn't just been reacting. She'd been orchestrating this entire endgame. Agent Davies signaled, and 2 plainclothes officers emerged from an unmarked sedan parked down the block. They weren't local PD, they had the quiet, no-nonsense air of federal agents. They professionally collected the dropped taser as evidence, began taking brief statements, and recited legal rights with practiced efficiency. Sunglasses Guy was quietly handcuffed without a word. One of his partners, the one who'd been filming earlier, started to protest, but was quickly reminded of the penalties for impersonating authority and interfering with a federal investigation. He went silent immediately. About 10 minutes later, Eleanor Vance finally arrived, flanked by 2 pale-faced HOA board members who looked like they wished the ground would swallow them whole. She tried to stride in with authority, arms crossed, jaw set, but the illusion shattered the moment Agent Davies addressed her. "Ma'am, you are Eleanor Vance, current president of this homeowners association?" "I am," she stated, chin high, as if daring him to challenge her. "And you authorize the formation and actions of the Resident Safety Committee, including their equipment and enforcement protocols?" "Yes, and I must insist." "Then you are legally responsible for their conduct," Davies cut her off smoothly. "We need you to come with us for questioning regarding potential violations of federal law." Eleanor actually scoffed. "Questioning? About what? This is an internal community matter. You have no jurisdiction here." Agent Davies didn't even blink. "Actually, ma'am, we do. Our investigation found that the Willow Creek Meadows HOA has been operating with an expired charter for over a year. During that time, you've levied tens of thousands of dollars in questionable fines, systematically harassed residents, and created an unauthorized enforcement group engaging in potentially illegal activities. This stopped being just an internal matter quite some time ago." The color drained from Eleanor's face. Her mouth worked silently. Her 2 board members practically melted into the background. Ava stepped forward and handed Agent Davies another document from her folder. "This contains digital correspondence, meeting minutes, and financial records, highlighting discussions about circumventing bylaws and escalating punitive measures against specific residents." Davies accepted it with a nod. "Mice? Vance?" he said, turning back to her. You and the board members present are persons of interest in an ongoing investigation into conspiracy, fraud, harassment, potential civil rights violations, and possible RICO statute infractions. RICO? Someone whispered from the edge of the crowd. Like, the mob? Pretty much, I heard myself say quietly. Eleanor Vance was escorted to the unmarked car, her beige jacket flapping slightly. She didn't look back. Over the next hour, the crowd dispersed. Neighbors drifted home, talking in hushed, excited tones about what they'd witnessed. Ava and her team stayed, quietly conferring with Agent Davies and his officers, organizing the evidence they'd compiled. I saw Mr. Henderson approach Ava, his eyes suspiciously bright, thanking her profusely. Apparently, the HOA had threatened foreclosure over his structurally incongruous classic car shelter just last month. By twilight, the street was quiet again. The agents were gone. The off-roader was back in the driveway, and the only lingering scent was charcoal and resolution. A week later, the Willow Creek Meadows HOA was formally dissolved by court order. With no valid charter, all its rules, fines, and threats evaporated overnight. Records were seized. The Resident Safety Committee members were barred from holding any future community positions. Ava didn't celebrate. She just archived her files, shut down the team chat, and went back to her morning jogs. But the neighborhood needed leadership. At an emergency community meeting called to figure out next steps, someone nominated Ava for interim president. She didn't campaign or make promises. She just accepted with a quiet nod. Her first official act? She symbolically fed the old, ridiculously thick rulebook into a shredder. Her second? A single new bylaw. No HOA board member or committee would ever again have the power to issue fines, conduct patrols, or wear anything resembling a uniform. From now on, it was transparency and mutual respect. Period. She handed me the ceremonial and largely useless gavel after the meeting, whispering, "It's not payback, it's rebuilding." I mostly believed her. Just before we left the community room, she turned back to the assembled neighbors and said, "Oh, and one more thing. If anyone happens to find an old clipboard labeled Resident Safety Committee, feel free to toss it in the nearest recycling bin." Ironically, of course. A wave of genuine, relieved laughter filled the room. Willow Creek was finally breathing again. And Ava? She wasn't just my wife. She was the quiet storm who'd finally cleared the air. Calm, tactical, and definitely not someone you wanted to point a taser at.